Okay, take three. Welcome to Critical Weight Theory. And today we're heading to Osaka, Japan. Not literally, of course, but that's where the band I'm discussing today is from. Japan is home of one of the wildest, loudest, most unpredictable bands to ever exist, Boredoms. If you've never heard of them, imagine punk, free jazz, tribal drumming, psychedelia, noise, and so on and so forth. I first heard of this band on weirdsville.com, and that place was so weird that they even accepted some of my CDRs that I sent to them. So they accepted weirdness from all over the place, and Boredoms was definitely a memorable band that I heard on their Weird player back in the day. And I really wish that site would return, but alas, it's been gone for such a long time. Let me know if there's any site similar to weirdsville.com that I could check out at some point. Anyway, the group started in the mid 1980s, led by Yamantaka Ai, a frontman so eccentric he once fronted a noise outfit called Hanatarash that infamously drove a bulldozer through a venue. So I brought that same wild, theatrical energy into Boredoms alongside a rotating cast of equally fearless musicians for what could be called punk jazz, but that's that doesn't really capture the ferocity that their music sometimes has, especially if you listen to their earlier stuff. In the late 80s, Boredoms were pure chaos. Albums like Osorizon, No Stooges Kyo, and Soul Discharge are walls of abrasive, absurd, unrelenting noise. And I'm sure I've heard some stuff from them or from those albums on Pandora, because you can find them there. You can also find their stuff on YouTube. So even though I think I've only ever listened to one full album by them, I've heard some of their other material. So they draw from hardcore punk, free jazz, and performance art. Think of a band that sounds like it's about to explode at any moment. And they're also very fun to listen to. It's a very unpredictable sort of band. At least that's what I feel about them. It's loud, weird, and utterly unlike anything else in Japan's underground scene. Well, maybe not totally unlike anything else, but you can pretty much instantly identify Boredoms. And they did have a psychedelic turn, though, where they started to become less noise oriented. In the early 90s, something shifted. The noise was still there, but it started to wrap itself around hooks and grooves, so to speak. Pop Tatari in 1992 and Chocolate Synthesizer in 1994 are said to have blended noise, funk, and not trippy pop sensibilities. Trimpy, I don't know what the hell that would be. Sorry about that. Uh, it's a tongue twister for my pathetic brain, I suppose. But this caught the attention of Western underground royalty, like Sonic Youth were early champions, bringing Boredoms to international audiences. And they also had a cosmic phase in the late 90s. The guitars got spacier, the drums got hypnotic, and the chaos found a meditative pulse. Albums like Super AE from 1998 and Vision Creation New Sun in 1999. They're described as if they're sprawling, trance like journeys, still unpredictable, but now with a cosmic, almost spiritual vibe to them. It was as if Boredoms went from tearing sound apart to building infinite loops that you could lose yourself in. And they also had a drum army phase. Maybe they're still in that phase. By the 2000s, Ai's obsession with rhythm took over pretty much completely. This led to legendary events like 77 Boa Drum in 2007, where 77 drummers arranged in a giant spiral playing together in an open air marathon of percussion. So it must have been incredibly loud. And if it's captured on a disc, you might want to turn the volume down even. And the following year, they topped themselves with 88 boa drum. So even more drums were thrown into the mix. So it's like a drum circle, only with, you know, a lot more musicians than you would probably find in a typical drum circle. If early boredom sounded like an explosion, this era sounded like the aftershock reverberating across the cosmos. So, over nearly 4 decades, boredoms have blurred every line. Noise rock, psychedelic music, tribal ritual, electronic abstraction. They've influenced experimental acts around the world, from underground noise collectives to avant garde festival headliners. Their releases are sporadic now, sometimes blurring with eyes other projects, but they've never stopped reinventing themselves. They remain a cornerstone of Japan's experimental scene, proof that chaos can be both destructive and beautiful. So if you're curious where to start, this is what I've heard about, like how to approach their different eras. So for the pure noise energy, you might want to try Soul Discharge. For their psychedelic peak, you might want to go with Vision Creation New Sun. And if you want to hear what a giant drum spiral sounds like, you might just have to find a bootleg of 77 Boa Drum. And all of these are probably found on YouTube if you want to listen to them. And, I highly encourage you to explore this band because they're something else. So this has been Critical Wade Theory, and I'll leave you with a little advice from the world of boredoms. Embrace the weird, it might just change the way you hear everything.